Hello, guys, and welcome to part 5 of the Heretic Spotlight. And this one is going to focus on the footwear or our shoes slash boots. So I will get straight into it. Trash, decent, mana, defense, resistance. Decent, very expensive to upgrade, so not recommended. If you have nothing else, you can get this to level 10 because that is very minimal, but I would just try to wait for a better piece. So this is where this piece starts to get a bit decent too. In the head slot and the chest slot, it's trash, but because we have so little options for boots, or the options that we do have are so rare, this one is a decent piece. And it gives the healing effect, the additional healing of mana, and the additional restoration of the additional healing of HP, and the additional restoration of mana when you use potions. So it's a decent piece. Arisen Embla shoes. This one, I like it in certain carry builds with the Heretic's robe. If you don't have the Arisen Embla's robe, and it prevents stunned and gives you a bit of magic stat. So that's why I like them. But if you have the Skyfallen boots, those are going to be way better for that. Or even some other boots are nice too. But this one, I like it. But it's expensive, as I said. So it's up to your discretion. Arisen Fae Banshee boots, I love them. I need better pairs for myself. As I said, you're looking for the defensive stat here, and you utilize the defensive stat. So wherever the defensive stat is utilized in the game, that is where you will go. Arisen Hell's boots. So now we're getting into some interesting stuff because we hardly saw anything with Dex in the previous slots. But Dex is such an important stat for us that we want to utilize it wherever we see it. So the only thing that is beating, actually I think this beats the Surtur boots in Dex, but the Surtur boot beats it in the stats. So the Arisen Hell's boots is really good for the dexterity as well as the balance in stats. So I like this one in stuff that I don't need any ward, and I don't really need anything else other than a good defensive stat and the increased chance to actually hit what I'm trying to hit. And that is in the Orn version of Endless Dungeons whenever I'm using Orn gear. So I really like dexterity there, and I really like defense there. And the dexterity will also help you to dodge a little bit more. Arisen Jolly Stockings. These are nice for certain Heretic's robe carry builds because now the luck cap is a bit difficult to reach with your normal best in slot damage Heretic carry gear. So this one could replace your Skyfallen boots. Your Heretic's robe would have to remain because you need the mana burning, but this has a decent luck stat, and you will be able to use maybe even your helm piece being the Omega piece with the magic up, the temporary magic up. But it just depends because I'm still working out just how much luck is received from everything. So it is an option for sure. So if you get it, especially if you aren't using Snotra, it has a really good defensive stat. So it's definitely up there with one of the nicer pieces to pair with other pieces to carry, or even for your solo runs. Olympian leg wraps. If you have nothing else, you can definitely upgrade these. As I said, Heretic boot slot is a bit harder to fill because for some reason boots are very rare for us. So the leg wraps are fine. The shoes here are fine. If you get either of them, they are both nothing special. Look at the stats and you can make that determination of your own accord. But in my opinion, they are nothing special. Arisen shoes, nothing special. The Arisen Surtur boots, these are the ones I love for Orn Endless. As I stated above, for the Hell's boots, these are going to do the exact same thing, except they're just a little bit tankier with just a little bit less dexterity. So yeah. And then you can use these in other builds, say even like PvP builds where you need a bit of dexterity. I guess I shouldn't have to mention that, but yeah. The Trev shoes, if you have them, you can try them. If you do not, I wouldn't worry about it at all. I would not worry about it at all. Ash Plum shoes, if you don't have your Sky Fallen shoes, these are some good ones to give you the temporary magic up. These are what I used to use originally until the Sky Fallen boots came out for my carry build, because it has the temporary magic up and nothing else, because you're not really looking for any type of other stats. You just want the temporary magic up. So even normal qualities of these, some of these items with the temporary buffs or the buffs work. Ashen Phoenician shoes, I would say these are best in slot for some activities and close to best in slot for others, just because of the additional mana it gives. It allows you to be comfortable in your Iconoclast passive, and that's why I really like them. For Skyfallen boots, for stuff like Kingdom raids, you'd want your Skyfallen boots. For normal raids, I enjoy these because, one, it takes away the additional cost of the spells that you would get from Skyfallen boots, as well as it gives you a lot more mana to work with, as well as it gives you a bit of stats and it gives you a little bit of ward. So depending on what you're fighting, you're just a little bit tankier and you can sustain yourself just a little bit better. Balder boots, really nice. If you have nothing else, especially really nice, even if you do have certain things, because it's just a nice one to have, especially if you do a lot of different things. So like buffing up in dungeons with a piece of Balder gear is good for the cursed immunity. And yeah, it gives you a bit of ward, it gives you a bit of HP. So some PvP builds, it is useful too. Yeah, it's a decent piece. I would say upgrade it if you have a good piece, and yeah, let the good times roll. Banshee boots, I won't go over them anymore. I think I go over them every time. They are okay at best. They are okay at best. But if you have nothing else, you can get them to level 10. And you can try your best to utilize the stats that they have to offer. Beguiled shoes, another one that I would say mainly in PvP setups or some buffing phase builds where you face stuff that do doom and you can't kill them in time. Crusading boots, trash. The Ebon Jolly stockings, just a less version of the ones I showed of the Arisen version. These should also have luck. It just has not been updated yet. The Elite Northern shoes, these are actually interesting because they give you a bit of defensive stat and a bit of mana. So places you want to be tanky, if you had these in T9 and you happen to upgrade them, they might be useful for early in tier 10. Fallen shoes, I'm gonna go ahead and say trash. If you are looking for shoes, you might as well just look for the Arisen shoes in tier 10, which are not much better but better. The Skyfallen shoes, these are one of my favorites. I like them in Kingdom raiding because you can't adjust your mana properly there. And I like this in carry builds because it helps you to spend your mana faster. And in that way, it helps you to gain the stats that losing your mana grants you faster. So you can carry the dungeon faster. So I pair this one with the Arisen Embla's robe for my carry build. But it is also decent depending on your mana pool with your Heretic's robe. Except you lose the temporary all up from the Arisen Embla's robe. But yeah, pretty good. I hear some people saying they use this in Orn Endless. I don't see how. I can't get it to work. It just consumes too much mana for what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to live in my iconoclast passive. Maybe those persons do. I think they said it was actually XP endless, where they don't use the court jester's top. And if you're using a Heretic coat, this would be a lot better because you have more mana to work with. But even then, I would still want the dexterity from, say, the Arisen Hell's boots or the Arisen Surtur's boots, or the tankiness from the Arisen Fae Banshee's boots, because that is another place I really love them. The tankiness from it is so good. But yeah, Skyfallen boots are really nice. Fae Banshee boots do the same thing as the Arisen Fae version. As I said, nice in certain PvP matchups. Nice if you don't have certain boots in raiding. Nice if you are doing Orn Endless for the tankiness. Final Horseman boots can be nice in live PvP matchups because of the foresight and the defense with res. And yeah, if you are able to outrun your opponent, you might even one-shot them without needing to utilize the stats. Great Phoenician boots, garbage. Ifrit's feet, it's okay because of the balancing stats as well as the burning immunity, because burning does reduce the damage you do by just a little bit. So it would be a lot in the long run when you've stacked up a ton of buffs just because you're doing a lot then. Has a bit of dexterity, which I always like. Nothing serious though, nothing to worry about. It's so small that it's almost something you can ignore, and it's something I have ignored because I did not remember that these pieces had dexterity. It has very little adornment slots too, so that would be a major downside. Immortal boots, if you're fighting something like Arisen Hell that blinds people a lot, it might be useful. But overall, you have just so many better pieces that if the blind is unbearable, then you'd use this. But if you can get through it, then you might not. Incarnate boots, I'm not gonna lie, they're decent. Even in tier 10, just a bit hard to upgrade and a bit hard to farm. So if you are one of the lucky 6 people who have a 200% in this without any other gear, you can be happy that you have a good piece. It is going to get sidelined by stuff like your Skyfallen, or just depends on what you're doing. But it is a good piece and it can work in multiple places like raiding. It can work in even endless. Like, it just depends on if you have absolutely nothing else. Leoness shoes, trash. Omega Olympia shoes. I'm not sure what to say about the description, but it's pretty much just like the other shoes I showed you that gives you the temporary magic up. So if you don't have your Skyfallen shoes, you can use this piece with a Heretic's robe top, and that is a good balance in mana consumption as well as buff acquisition. So it's a decent piece for sure. The piece below it is going to be the tier 9 version, which is the same. Third Horseman boots, same as Final Horseman boots, same as what I said about those. And the Viper boots are just going to be something that if you are in need of the specific stats and the dragon resistance on it, you might try, because it's very easy to upgrade to, but you won't find much use in it the later in game you go. So yeah, that was the boot segment. A lot less boots. Wow, surprisingly, not so surprisingly. But yes, thank you guys for watching. As usual, a special shout out to my Patreons. You have Deluxe, Aaron, Urban and Bear. I think I'm Burton, Attorney, Wizard, Sexy Moto. Yes, I think that's all. And you have my private Patreons. Thank you guys as well. Thank you to my subscribers, to my viewers. chest time. I thought I disabled my notification, so I was about to be like, what? But that's just my chest. I didn't disable that one. So yes, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Part 6 coming soon. I'm gonna go ahead and say part 6 is going to be shields or offhands. So there aren't many useful ones of those, but I will show you the few useful ones that we can utilize. Thank you guys.